Hello, 301ers. My name is Aaron Aggregato, and along with my partners, Tommy Nguyen, Brad Okawa, and Aiden Fan, we researched a study that compares plyometric training to strength training and the effects that both programs have on male soccer player development. So why don't we just get into it? So a bit of background information. Soccer, or in other countries, football, is one of the most widely played sports in the world and requires athletes to perform repeated sprinting, jumping, and rapid changes in directions during matches, allowing them to be more dynamic and explosive on the field. So it comes to no one's surprise that lower body muscle strength is king, especially the quadriceps muscles. Um, lower body muscle strength plays an important role as it helps athletes run faster, jump higher, and generate more power when kicking or sprinting. Um, One of the most common methods in order to train the quadriceps muscles and the lower body muscle strength was plyometric training, which involved explosive movements such as jumping, bounding, and hopping. But as a recent, strength training has also been widely used in general to improve muscular strength and sports performance. But now that begs the question, which one is more effective? So today, the study compares plyometric training, which is jump training, and strength training to see which is more beneficial to male soccer player development. Now, I'll pass it to Aiden, who'll tell you more.
Hi, my name is Aiden, and I'm here to talk about the purpose and methodology of the research article that we chose. Researchers wanted to compare the effects of plyometric training versus strength training over a span of 8 weeks. And their goal was to see which type of training would be more beneficial and effective for soccer players in three selected outcomes. The first outcome was to see which type of training would improve muscle strength of the quadriceps more. And to do this, they utilize a isomover dynamometer to see or to measure the maximum torque force of the quadriceps. The next test was a sprint test in which an individual was tasked with sprinting 50 meters and a stopwatch was used to collect this data or their time data. The last outcome was seeing which type of training would be the most effective in improving lower limb functional performance. And to do this, they utilize a single leg triple hop and a measuring tape to see how much distance their dominant leg would cover while performing this triple hop. One thing to note is that three trials were performed for each outcome, and the outcomes were recorded prior to the 8 weeks of training and after the 8 weeks of training to compare. Moving on, the population consisted of 90 participants who were all randomly selected from universities or clubs. The participants are all male soccer players who are aged 18 to 25, and they all went through screening so that no major injury history would affect the data. The time span of the training was 8 weeks, and the 90 participants were then randomly put into three different groups, so 30 participants per group. Moving on, the three training groups were the plyometric training group, the strength training group, and the control group. The plyometric training group utilized three types of exercises: bounding, hurdling, and drop jumping. And for the first after the first 2 weeks of doing these, the difficulty ramped up for the final 6 weeks. For the strength training group, they utilize isometric based quadricep exercises. They utilize isometric knee extensions, hip abductions, and single leg raises as well. And then finally, for the control group, they were not given any specific training like routine. They were just told to do a dynamic workout or warm up, a 10-minute run, and then just do some stretching workouts to improve flexibility. And then after these 8 weeks, oh, also for the strength training group, they only did the training 3 days a week for the 8 weeks. After the 8 weeks, their outcomes were then measured and compared to the baseline data.
All right, 301ers. We're going to look over the data and the results now for these. If we see from table 3, we see that the strength training, in regards to the rest of the other training factors, has the most increase in the sense that the percentages are much higher compared to the plyometric training and also the control group. It is also be stated that the control group, the plyometric training, as well as the strength training did yield an increase. So it doesn't really, each of them still had an increase regardless of the 8 week trial. The control group had no specificity, as we previously stated, and the plyometric groups were solely responsible for just doing the plyometric workouts, which is kind of interesting to think about when it comes to the single leg hop test and the sprint time, that the plyometrics wouldn't have that much of an increase, but it is also to be stated that the plyometric group had higher levels, higher values in terms of their sprint time, or I guess a decrease in their sprint time, as well as their isometric and their single leg hop test. So while it does say the strength training has the highest yield, the plyometrics also had a major increase in that sense.
When breaking down the analysis of this study on non-elite male soccer players, both the strength training and plyometric groups saw significant increases in their maximal isometric quadriceps strength test. They also saw decreases in time in their 50-meter sprints, as well as an increase in distance for their single leg triple hop test. Understanding this as well, the control group saw non-significant increases in these tests, so their numbers went up, but not to a degree where we can consider it significant. Although the strength training group saw the greatest increase in performance across all 3 tests compared to the plyometric, and then finally the controlled group. When we apply this to a real-world application, it is important that this data gives us valuable insights for coaches that are programming training and also skill development for male soccer athletes. Understand this, there are some limitations to this study, right? The study only analyzed non-elite male soccer players, right? They were not females, young athletes, or elderly or older adults. Additionally, as well, these were pulled from university and local soccer clubs in Saudi Arabia. This is not conclusive data on whether or not plyometric training or strength training is better than one another. A concurrent approach, or whereas an individual does both strength training and plyometric training, tends to be the best approach in real life application. This is due to the stretch shortening cycle and the rapid eccentrics, amortization, isometric contractions, and concentric within plyometric training, and additionally trying to produce as much force as possible in order to keep the individual healthy and performing as well. This is our reference source right here. And additionally, thank you for your attention for viewing this presentation.